Hey everybody, thank you for coming back, and those of you who are new, thank you for tuning in. This is Jack Graham with another edition of Straight Talk with Jack, where we talk about a lot of things, mostly jazz music, vinyl, some digital, but mostly vinyl. Today is the 23rd of April, 2022, and it is Record Store Day. I just got back, picked up the available stuff that I wanted. Didn't get everything. I left 2 hours before the store opened. There was probably 100 people lined up before I got there at about 6 a.m. I walked in about 8 a.m. and walked out about 8:05 a.m. with a few records we'll talk about here in a minute. What was interesting to me is I think I was the oldest one there. It's really, really interesting to see how many young people, I'm talking 20s, maybe early 30s, that were in line to buy vinyl music. Interesting. I think Michael Fremer might have been right 30 years ago when he was preaching what was going on. So I think he was probably right. It was an amazing thing to see. Anyhow, let's talk about some music. You know, recently, one of my favorite YouTube channels is Dan, known as the Jazz Shepherd from Minneapolis. I think I mentioned before, Dan is a wealth of knowledge, but far more than me. He's got an amazing collection, knows the history of the labels much more than I do. I kind of know about musicians, as does Dan, but his knowledge of the history of the labels and the musicians is amazing. If you haven't checked Dan at the Jazz Shepherd out, please do that. But he had mentioned these contemporary reissues that are coming. I think one of them shipping in May. I'm not sure which one, probably one of the Art Peppers. I did order them. I'm sure they're going to be great. I recently listened to a copy of Art Pepper Plus 11 on the original contemporary. And I have to tell you, if the reissue is better than that, I'm going to be blown away. I mean, I have a clean copy, and it was amazing. There's many places here on YouTube that discusses contemporary records. If you go to Acoustic Sounds, there's one interview that Chad Kasem did with Bernie Grundman, who worked at Contemporary, who remastered the new ones, but also was involved there when the originals were made. And it's really worth listening to at Acoustic Sounds YouTube channel. I think it might be the third one in from the most recent right now, but it's about an hour and a half, but it's really, really good. But Dan talked about some contemporaries that should have been reissued, and while I was watching that, I said, I bet he's going to mention Shelly Manne and his men at the Black Hawk, and sure enough, he did. Interestingly, I had just found, and Dan said, boy, they ought to bring a box set out of all the contemporaries of the Blackhawks. Here's a couple of them. I've got clean copies of number 2 and number 4 on vinyl, original contemporaries. Actually, this isn't original, this one is. But it's an amazing group. Shelly Manne is a great drummer from the West Coast. Very tasty player. Time is impeccable. Never got in the way. And a great band. Rich Kamuk on tenor. You can hear Joe Gordon here in the background. Very underrated trumpet player. It's a real West Coast, as Dan says, a cool bop band. Correctly put. Maybe not the intensity, the hard bop of the East Coast, but you're dealing with a different environment out in California. So Dan called it cool bop, and he's right on. But what I want to say is that I've recently picked up, and I can't remember if I found this on eBay. I don't buy too much music on eBay. Might have been Discogs. There is a complete set on CD of all 4 recordings. They sound okay. They don't sound as good as the vinyl, but they sound okay, but it's a complete set. I think I paid about $30 for this, and it came from England. I know that. It's the American Jazz Classics. I guess that's the reissuing company, but it doesn't say what country that they were manufactured in. But it is available in a box. So if you look around for it, you might find it. Shelly Man and His Men, 4 records, 4 CDs. Just a great group. Just a really great group. So record store day. Let's see. I literally walked in here about 20 minutes ago. Of course, the recording that I was really the most interested in picking up and wanting to hear, which I'll do tonight, is the Art Pepper meets the Rhythm section. Maybe one of the most famous contemporaries ever made. This is a reissue done in mono. According to what Mr. Grunman said on that recent interview, they had 2 tapes running, one for stereo and one for mono. And this is the mono version. This is the Acoustic Sound Series, again, probably pressed at QRP, I'm guessing. And it's 180 gram vinyl, Bernie Grunman, all analog. And the story behind this, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You can hear it elsewhere. Dan does a great talk about it. Miles' rhythm section was in town, and Art Pepper, for various reasons, hadn't played in a while. I'm not sure that this was even his instrument. I've heard stories that he picked one up in a pawn shop and went and made this record, but he hadn't played in a while, and he was late to recording. I don't know what kind of condition he's in. Art was, he had a tough life. He was known to use some drugs, and this is a very famous contemporary record, and it's going to be reissued in the other series that Chad Kassem is producing, that Mr. Grunman had remastered, and I'm sure it's going to be great in stereo. This is in mono. It's a funny thing. People buy mono recordings, and I've got a few here, but I'm sure they sound a little different. But my stylus is not a mono stylus, so I'm not really getting the true mono out of this. I bet it sounds really awesome with the right equipment. My equipment is not capable of producing this in the way it should sound. But, the funny part about it is I have a lot of Art Pepper in my collection, and this to me is not Art's greatest play. He plays great, but not his greatest playing. A little awkward with Miles' rhythm section to me. It's not his strongest play. The sound is great, and he plays on a scale of 1 to 10. He probably plays, to me, maybe like a 7.5 or an 8. His other stuff, Art Pepper 11, some of the other things he did, Playboys with Chet Baker and with Jack Sheldon, a couple other things. He plays just amazing on it. So I'm interested to hear this, and it's a great record. I mean, it really is. It's not one of his strongest, but one of the most famous contemporaries available. The other thing that was in the store this morning was Pepper Adams, baritone saxophonist from, I remember him in New York. I think he might have been from Detroit or Pittsburgh, or maybe he was Chicago, I'm not sure, but he's a great bari player. I'm not a big baritone sax nut. I like Mulligan. I like the way he plays his ideas. Again, it's a very different sound than Pepper Adams, more of a smooth West Coast sound. But Pepper's got a kind of an edgy sound, and really, he's a honker, I call him, and he just plays great. This is recorded in Canada at a university, I believe in either British Columbia or Edmonton or Calgary or somewhere up there, with the Tommy Banks Trio. No idea who Tommy Banks is, but Pepper's a great player. I've got him with the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Band. He did some recordings, a lot of other recordings. But he's just a great player. And they stretch out on this. There's 2 records in here. And it should be pretty good. It's on a label called Reel to Reel, REEL to REAL. And it's numbered. They're only making 1,500 copies. This is copy 1436. Nice cover. I'm sure there's some nice stuff in here. We'll check that out. What else was there? Bill Evans. This is a '79 concert. Toured. It was not early Bill Evans. Again, it's a limited edition of 6,500. It's number 3564. I don't buy these to collect them. I buy them to listen to music. A lot of people just buy them to collect them. But this is the group he had with Mark Johnson, who later went on, I think, to do some work with Matheny. Joe LaBarbera on drums. So this is a later group, not too far from when Bill Evans passed. This is on the Renaissance record label. I've had some Renaissance records before, and they've not been great. But I think this is going to be great because it's pressed at RTI, California, 180 gram. And again, Grundman is involved with this. Seems Grundman's doing a lot of work these days. And he's getting up there in age, like me here. And he's working a lot harder than I am, so God bless him. But this should be pretty interesting. Nice tunes. What else is on here? I don't know anything about this record, but it's a Max Roach record called We Insist, Max Roach and the Oscar Brown Jr. Freedom Suite Now. I don't know anything about it other than Coleman Hawkins is on this, and it was recorded back in 1960. So it's a 60-year-old recording, and we'll see what's on it. Booker Little is on this, trumpet player, really another Joe Gordon type player, very underrated player, really great sound and great technique and very tasty player. So I'm actually interested to hear this. Abby Lincoln is on vocals, Booker Little, Walter Benton on tenor. Julian Priester's on this. Julian's a good player. I heard Julian with the Duke Pearson band, I believe, New York band back in the 70s, maybe early 80s. But Julian Priester's a good player, trombone player. So, you never know. Be interesting to hear this. What else did I want to talk to you about before Record Store Day? I was actually going to do this a couple days earlier, but I got busy. I've been doing some rearranging here, and I wanted to talk to you about some of the Pablo recordings. If you get to a record store that has good quality used records, and you're into just a lot of good swing and jazz. Pablo Records back in the 70s and 80s did a lot of records, and they seem to have done a lot of compilations. This record here is just a Count Basie record called Basie and His Orchestra Prime Time on Pablo, and it's really one of Basie's best records. So later band, but very swinging record. This is one of the few Pablos I have that isn't with a big group. This is Jazz at the Philharmonic, on Pablo, with Benny Carter, alto, and Roy Eldridge, Zoot, Sims, Clark Terry, Joe Pass, Tommy Flanagan, Keeter Becks, drummer, bass player, and Bobby Durham on drums. I mean, it's hard to find those names on one recording, and the sound on Pablo, it's not contemporary, but it's really good if and they're around, and you can find them on Discogs, reasonably inexpensive, in good shape. Here's another Montrose 77 with Basie, Eldridge, Carter. This might have been that same recording. I have to look. Not same recording, but the same group that was made 2 or 3 recordings. But Jimmy Smith is on this and Al Gray, so it probably isn't. But I bought this in really good shape in a record store for $14.99. And it's really in good condition. Pablo really took a lot of care in recording. Here's another one, Jazz Maturity. Where It's Coming From, Eldridge, Dizzy is on this. Ray Brown, Oscar Peterson. It's really the Ray Brown trio, but Mickey Rucker's playing drums instead of the few drummers that Oscar used. But again, Eldridge and Dizzy on the record, you'll hear a lot where Dizzy came from Roy Eldridge. Roy was a great player. Unfortunately, he made some recordings in his later years. It's kind of like a baseball player that the 300 hitter and wants to play that extra year and hits 200, and that's what you remember. Roy's chops, like all of us, they don't last forever, and he continued making recordings. Here's another compilation from 1955. This is a reissue, and this is a great record. And again, it's Dizzy and Roy. Flip Phillips, the tenor player, alumni of one of the Woody Herman herds. I think the second herd, maybe. Oscar Herbelis, Ray Brown, and Louis Belson on drums. So Pablo has a lot of these recordings with multiple stars on it, but really recorded well. And then there's just a couple other records that I pulled out and listened to lately. One of which I talked about was Dizzy Gillespie, Something Old, Something New. You can find this on CD as well. They're tunes from 1963 and 1945, but they're versions, not the 1945 recordings, of course. This is, I believe, recorded probably back in the 60s. With Dizzy's, my favorite band that he had with James Moody and Kenny Barron, young Kenny Barron, Chris White, and Rudy Collins. Chris White was a bass player, and Rudy Collins had that turned up ride cymbal that had that sound that Dizzy loved. But this is a great record. This is one of the first records I ever owned. I think this was certainly in the first 5 records I ever owned. And I had to be probably 12 or 13 when I picked this up. This is not it. I wish I had that one. But this is, again, it's on Phillips Records. It's around. You can find it. Great record. James Moody plays just wonderful on here. Another Dizzy Gillespie record. After I listened to that one the other night, I put this recording on. This is a septet group that Dizzy had, and it's on Verve. And it's a really swinging band with Sonny Stitt is on this. Sonny Stitt just did a lot of recording. If you go back to Dan the Jazz Shepherd and listen to his series on Prestige and some of the other YouTube videos he did on the history of some of the labels, he talks about Sonny Stitt, and I agree with him. Sonny Stitt was a very great player and a prolific recorder. John Lewis of the Modern Jazz Quartet, Bercy Heath, of course, MJQ on this, Charlie Persip, and again, Skeeter Bett on here. This is a great band, great band, and they do a couple bebop tunes and a couple ballads. And Dizzy just plays. This is one, I think, maybe one of my favorite Dizzy Gillespie records of all time. The Modern Jazz Quartet. I bought this in Iceland for 3,900 euros, probably back about 5 years ago. Of course, I stayed in Iceland. I was over there. I'm a photographer, and I was over there. And they put us in a hotel across from a record store. Good and bad, as you could probably guess. But this is a great recording. And it's an old mono verve, and it's a Japanese pressing. And it's pretty good. Pressing's pretty good. It's not the original, but it's really good. The other record I wanted to talk about, and this again is available. I saw a couple copies. I bought this from Discogs, probably paid $25 for this. But it's an old Don Patterson, again, one of the great Hammond B3 players. But this is a record made on in Prestige in Bergenfield, again, where I used to live. And so this had to be made in probably 65 to 68 without looking. But it's in good shape. It's in very good shape. And the cool thing about this is Blue Mitchell's on this. Again, kind of an underrated trumpet player. You know, we all know about Miles. You know, we all know about Lee Morgan and Freddie. But man, guys like Booker Little and Blue Mitchell and Joe Gordon, what great players. So people need to know about. But Pat Martino is on this. So Pat Martino, I'm guessing, is probably 23 or 24. He was very in demand at a very young age, and a great guitar player. He plays superb on this record. This is a Prestige 7500 series. Prestige stereo, Don Patterson. Anyhow, so that's about it for today. I guess I have some things to listen to tonight. Record store day is over. Again, I have kind of mixed emotions about record store days. It's great for the stores. They made a lot of money there fairly quickly, and I guess that's important to keep those guys open. So thank you for watching, and we'll be back with another one not too far from today. Please like the channel, subscribe. Feedback is great, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you again.